Hi, in this video I will see about a database file system. Database file system is nothing but we use our database as a file server, just like a file server to store and retrieve files, or just like a NAS drive to store and retrieve files from any mission. We use our DBFS to store and retrieve files, but all these files are stored as large objects in our database. We have our database, and this is our table space, and it's of size 30 GB, and we have a common user by named c hash hash user one. Let's see how we can mount the space in this particular table space as a file system. If we see, these are the initial file systems available in our mission. Let's try to mount the table space as a file system now. And for that we have multiple methods, and we use the dbfs underscore client binary to mount the file system. And I have this thing as a mount point, mntdfs. So let's dbfs client username and then the service name to access the database, and then the mount point. It will prompt me for the password. I'll have to give the password. The thing with this command is, it prompts for the password. You can enter the password, but it does not return to the command. So let's open this thing in a new window. And if we see now here, we are in the same mission, OL1719C rack 1. This is our rack cluster. OL1719C rack 1, and now we can see the DBFS file system being mounted. You can see here, mount point is this thing, and it is having 30 GB, and this is how it showed as DBFS file system, and this is our user, and this is our service name to access our database. Now we can go and store files here. Okay, V8 test. Some message. Yeah. If I see, we have stored our file. If we go to our database and see that this will be stored as a lob into our table space. So that means all the files that we stored in our DBFS file system will be stored as a large objects into our database. So let's see that also. Okay, I've been playing with this thing, so that's why you see some objects in the recycle bin also. Now let's see the tables again in this user. These are the two tables it created for us. Okay, somewhere you will see the file data which is stored as a blob. This is our file that we stored and that we just created, and the content of it will be stored as a blob in the database. The advantage with this thing is all your objects will be stored as blobs. And if you are having a data guard, that means all the file content will be available in the data guard side also. So you got high availability for your files. That is one advantage. And the other advantage is you can mount this file system from any other machine. When I say any other machine, any other Linux or Solaris machine. The reason for Linux and Solaris is, to be able to access the files using the OS. It makes use of the FUSE file system in user space packages at the OS level. So the file system in user space packages helps us in converting the OS calls into the respective OCI calls, Oracle Call System Interface calls. These fuse packages are available only for Linux and Solaris machines. So in any Linux and Solaris where these fuse are available, you can mount this file system. So we have seen one method of mounting the file system. Let's see the disadvantages with that. If at all, if I close this window, or if the session is closed, let's see what happens. I intentionally closed it. Let's see the file system now. It got unmounted. So that is one crude method of mounting the file system by providing the password manually. Maybe you can use it just for if you want to access the file system for a few minutes, and you don't have a need to keep it mounted all the time, then probably you can use it. Other way of mounting the file system is by providing the password in a file and then referring to that file and mounting it in the background. Let's see that method now. Okay, I have stored the password, I think, in this file. Yeah, this is my password. So let's try to access this file and mount it in the NoHop. This time I'm just referring to DBFS client. This is the binary helps us to mount the file system, and we are mounting it as user c hash hash user one. There is one recommendation that we should not be using the system to mount the file system. They recommend to use one user, and this user needs to be granted some additional privileges to mount the file system. So that is the thing. DBFS client is the binary, and this is the user, and this is our service name to connect to the database, and this is our mount point, and we have stored our password in this particular file, so we are referring to that file also. So let's start this in the background. So we have successfully mounted it. Now if you see, we again got our file system back. So with this thing, till the time you unmount this file system, the file system is accessible. Okay, if we try to create another test file, something I'm just trying. Now we have two files. Just go to okay. We just need the name of it. Okay, now we can see the database is also storing the content of test mount too. So all these files that we create under that DBFS file system will be physically stored in the table space that we actually meant to use for that file system. Now let's unmount this file system now. fuser mount is the command to unmount the fuse file systems. fuser mount -u and then the mount point. So this is the command for us to unmount the file system. It got unmounted now. We can see that the file system is not there now. Okay. But the disadvantage with this method is you are actually storing the user's password in a file, and the file can be viewed by other people. So if you want to overcome that, there is one more method wherein you can store the user's credentials in an Oracle wallet and then access that wallet in the DBFS client command to mount your file system. So we are going to see that method now. Okay, this is the thing, DBFS client hyphen o wallet, and then this thing says like, make use of the wallet, and then this is our service name, and then the mount point. In our example, it is MNT. So let's go to Oracle home bin, and then refer this thing DBFS client hyphen o wallet. Now if you see, it took a little time. As soon as we run this thing DBFS client hyphen o wallet, we are making use of the wallet to access the credentials. The username and password are stored in that wallet. We're actually referring to that wallet to be able to access our, to be able to mount our file system. It got mounted. We can see that thing, DBFS CDB rack. And let's go and create one more file now. I have actually copied my password file also into this mount point. I can remove that and copy that again. I have copied it again. Okay. So let's try to stored some content. Now, if we go and access the database, you will see this file also. Just let's see one more thing. The path name also for each file. Okay, this is our test mount 2 and test mount wallet. Everything is there under slash, even our password. So that's how the files are stored as large objects in the database and in the table space, which is meant for the DFS mount point. Now let's try to unmount it here also. Okay, I'm actually in the same mount point. I can't unmount it by staying in the same location. Let's go out of it and then unmount it. Now it got unmounted plainly. So this is how you can make use of a wallet and mount a DBFS file system. The advantage with this thing is, you don't have to make use of the ACFS file system. You know, The advantages with this DBFS file system is you can make use of this DBFS file system available to all nodes of the cluster. You can mount this file system in all nodes of the cluster. Not only that, you can mount this file system on any other machine, on any other Solaris or Linux machine wherein you have installed the Fuse packages. So let's see that. Yeah, this is a two node cluster. Let's see that. Rack 1 and rack 2, these are the two nodes of my cluster. I have one more mission which is not part of that cluster. Let's try to mount this DBFS file system from that mission and see. For that, I am opening another mission. This is another mission, and the name of the mission itself is client node 1. If we see we don't have the DBFS file system being mounted here, let's try to mount that. But before that, we'll have to set the variables. Okay, we will have to set the LD library path also. Okay, now we can mount the file system. What I have here is MNT1 as the mount point. MNT1 is the mount point. Let me try to make use of that. I have a wallet here also. I have created a wallet on this mission also, and the wallet stores the credentials for the database user. So let me go to Oracle Home. And then try to mount using the DBFS client, and we are making use of the credentials from the wallet. Now we can see this thing, the DBFS file system got mounted, and this is on another mission which is not even part of the cluster. To mount this file system, I have installed the Fuse packages. So the Fuse packages are the ones which help us in converting the operating system commands into the respective OCI calls, Oracle Call Interface calls. So let's go into this file system now. We should be able to see all the files that were created earlier. Now let's create one more file. Okay, we just created another file by mounting this file system on another mission. Now let's go to the database and see if the large object is created for this particular file. This is our rack 1 mission. Now we can see the file created, test another mission. We created this file by mounting this file system on another mission. So that's how, if you have a requirement wherein you are going to get the feed files onto another machine constantly, and if you need to load the content of those feed files into the database, you can make use of the DBFS file system and mount this DBFS file system onto the client machine itself, and then use the DBFS file system to copy the files into the database itself as a large object, and then make use of those files to load the data into your database. That way the performance would be even better. Okay, now let's try to unmount this file system on the client machine also. The command is fuser mount. You need to come out of that file system, and our mount point was MNT1. Fuser mount hyphen unmount command, and then the We successfully unmounted that file system on the client machine now. Now, moving further, let's try to see what fuse packages we need to install at the operating system level so that we can successfully mount this file system on any machine. For that reason, I have not installed the fuse packages on one of the rack node. I will try to install them now. Also, to make this process more interesting and knowledgeable, I have tried to capture all the errors that I faced and the fixes for them in this process. Let's go to rack node 2 and let's go to I am as the root user in the node 2 now. We'll have to run these things. Yum install kernel devel. Get started install fuse libraries. Okay. Now we have a MND mount point here. Now let's try to MNT already exists. Okay. Okay, now let's try to see if we can mount that file system. For that, bin as of now the file system is not mounted. Let's try to okay, a dynamic linking error occurred, failure to load library. Okay, okay, it shows in the error that library file libfuse.so is missing, and we will have to rectify that. I have opened in a different window as root as the Oracle user and try to identify if we have the file libfuse.so, and we don't have it. And for that matter, on a working machine we have that file. This is our client node 1 where we were able to mount and unmount our DBFS file system. We could see that this library file is existing, and also we can see the same thing on our node 1 also. You can see the file is existing, library file libfuse.so is existing on both the missions, on our rack node 1 and on our client mission 1, where we were able to successfully mount and dismount the DBFS file system. As per the Metalink node, we need to perform these steps to be able to get the libfuse.so library. Okay. Let me open one more as root user. And perform the steps. Create the link file. Okay, now we have the libfuse .sfo file. Now let's try to mount the file system. Okay, it says fail to execute a fuse or mount no such file or directory. Okay, we will have to install the fuse package also, and the command for that is yum install fuse. Let's go into the rack node 2 as a root user. Here we are as a root user and install this yum install fuse. Okay, now it got completed. Let's try to mount this file system now and see. Okay, it says permission denied. To fix this thing, we will have to ensure our user Oracle is added to the fuse group. This thing actually creates a fuse group, and we will have to add our Oracle user to this fuse group, and the command for that is now add fuse to that fuse group user mod -eag. Okay, now if we go back here and see ID Oracle, now he is part of the fuse group also. Now let's try to mount this file system. Okay, let me try to open a new window and now we see that it will be working in a new window. Maybe some issue with the linking of the binaries or something. If we open a new session, we can see the file system to be mounted. Okay, we use the basic command, so it won't return to the command line or to the prompt, but we can see the file system to be mounted on the rack node 2. Let's go here and see if we can view all our files. Okay, these are all the files that were created initially, and all of them we can access even from the another rack node. This way, without making use of the ACFS, which needs additional licensing, we can convert a table space into a database file system and see that DBFS is available on all nodes of the cluster. And in case if we are making use of Golden Gate, we can have this file system used by our Golden Gate as a shareable file system across our cluster nodes. So here we have actually installed a few packages, fuse package, and then also the fuse libs, and we have installed this package also. After that, we ran into an error saying like lib library file libfuse.so was missing, and we followed this metalink node and we have fixed that. After that, we again ran into errors, and the reason for that is we need to ensure that Oracle user or the user as which we are trying to mount the file system should be part of the fuse group. So we went as the root user and added our Oracle user into the fuse group. Once that is added, we could mount the file system on the new nodes. So these are the steps that we can follow to mount or unmount a DBFS file system on any Linux or Solaris server. Okay, so far we were using the database user /user1 to mount the DBFS file system. and in that users tables, the files were stored as large objects. But let's see what we need to do to get those two tables. For that, let's drop and recreate the user itself. Okay, let me try to purge the recycle bin and retry that. Please note that once we drop the user under this users tables only, we are storing all our files as large objects. So all the files that were stored as large objects are also dropped now. Now let's create the user. Also, we are supposed to grant this pre-existing role, DBFS role, to that user. Let me also alter the user's default table space to DBFS table space. Alter user. And then let us grant unlimited quota on the table space to our user. We have already granted the role DBFS role to that user. Now the script for us to run is this thing: dbfs create file system.sql under Oracle Home rdbms admin. Let's see that in a different window. So under Oracle Home rdbms admin, this is the script that we are supposed to run, and it takes two parameters. The first one is the table space name, in our case dbfs1, and the second one is the mount point. So let's try to run that as our user. We have connected as our user. Let's try to run the script. And this is our table space name, and the second one is the mount point that I'm specifying. Okay, now let's see as that user again. We have got our tables back. So these are the tables that hold our files in the DBFS file systems that we were mounting, and the files are stored as large objects. So these are the things that we need to do for an user to mount a file system. So basically we covered the things that are required to set up a DBFS file system, and mounting a file system, and unmounting a file system, and to do the same on any other client mission. So that completes our video. Thank you for watching.